Okay. So the last thing we learned yesterday was a shir l'gabev, but the Gemara's discussion is in general. Whenever it says karka in a Mishnah or a Brisa, does it mean bedafka karka or it could also be metalton? And the Gemara wanted to prove, Rabbi Yosef, Abai wanted to prove from the case of Akoshav, Kol Mechosov la'avladov, Yotzim ben Chayrin, Shire karka kolshahu lo Yotzim ben Chayrin, and we know that Shire karka kolshahu is not dafka, it's even metalton kolshahu, because an Eved could be referred to as metalton as well. The Amar Avdimi by Yosef, right at the top of Kuf Nun Amar Aleph, Amar Abelazar, also metalton shir, it's 11. When someone says, I'm giving my Eved everything except for some metalton, he might be referring to his Eved when he's withholding some metalton. And therefore, as the Brisa says, it's not going to be considered it's not going to consider anything because the Eved doesn't go lecheres, and therefore he's not going anything. But the loyos to metalton shir esel ksuba. This is referring to a case we had not too long ago, where if someone tells his wife, if someone is mechalik his nechosim, he gives a piece of property to every one of his children, and he also gives a piece of property to his wife. And we had different shittas when we looked at the Gemara a couple of days ago. If she's witnessing it or if she's actually helping them become it, but whatever it is, she's involved there. We say that she's moichel her ksuba because she's receiving this piece of property. And the Gemara tells us that's only if he distributed all of his nechosim. But what if he kept something for himself? If he kept some karka for himself that he didn't distribute at that time, then we don't say she's a moichel ksuba because she says there's still some place to collect ksuba from that piece that remained. So that only works by karka, not metalton. But also metalton shares ksuba because she's only soymech on karka. It's the karka of a husband that's meshubah to her husband. So I'll call upon them zok to Gemara. You have a raya from here that karka doesn't mean karka dafka. Zok to Gemara is the difference. Hasam b'dinhu dololisni karka. Really, it shouldn't have said shire karka kolshu when we're talking about what wouldn't be a good matana. It should have said shire anything kolshu. Shire nechosim kolshu. Why did it say shire karka kolshu? It's only because that lotion was used in the Reisha of the Mishnah. But I need a ton of Reisha. The Mishnah that discusses the Eved is a Mishnah in Peah. And the Mishnah immediately preceding this Mishnah talks about if someone has even a mashu of karka, it's enough to be mechayiv in Peah, ubi bikurim, and with bikurim, the lichtav alim. First of all, we learned that you could only write a prosbol if the loiva has karka, the liknais imayim the choshim shein lamachrayis, and to use for kinagav by selling or by being koina a piece of property, you'll be koina with it. Anything that's a metaltlin, what type of kinyan do you use to be koina a piece of property? The kesaf, b'shtar, v'chazon. So since the earlier Mishnah is Taka speaking about karka, and it had to be referring to only karka because it's only karka that he has these specific characteristics. Therefore, it continued towards the Mishnah continued to use the word karka in the next Mishnah. Mishumachi katani karka choshu. Mishumachi katani karka. Now that's why I use the word karka. So really, when you use the word karka, it's taka dafka. But if it really wasn't supposed to use the word karka, it only used the word karka for some other reason, because the previous Mishnah is talking about karka. There, the karka is lavdafka. However, going back to our Mishnah that says karka kolshahu is what's required for a mat to shchivmara, for a shchivmara to leave over for himself in order that it should be a matana, even if he survives. There, it's karka mamish, not necessarily anything. So therefore, the kasha that Abai asked on Rabbi Yosef, and that was that karka is lav davka, is not a good kasha. Karka is dafka. So therefore, Rabbi Yosef said, you were saying how you were saying how mechuven, how nice the words of Rav Yehuda Marav is, and Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, who said that our mission is lavdavka, means even metaltlin. Zok Rabbi Yosef, I don't think you're right, because our mission says v'davka karka. Gewaltig. Now the Gemara wants to address the other point that was said. This was said by Rabbi Yehuda Marav, karka, it's koshu is lavdavka, it really means kedei parnasas. Fragt the Gemara b'chalecha the tani koshu, less shura. You, Rabbi Yosef, are being medayik from our Mishnah that Rabbi Yehuda Marav's halacha can't be right because it contradicts our Mishnah, because our Mishnah says koshu and Rabbi Yehuda Marav said kedei parnasas. So is that true? That whenever it says koshu, it means a tiny bit? What's none we learned? Rabbi Yosef and Harkinas Aimer, Chamesh v'chelois goyzois mana upras. Hayav aspirations, I guess. The halacha is that a person has to give to the kohen the first of the shearings when he shears his sheep each year, or whenever he shears them. But there's a minimum amount of wool that each animal has to yield in order to trigger a chiyuv of reish hagez, and that is mana upras. There has to be at least a mana upras per animal in order. You need 5 animals that each one produces a mana upras, and then there'll be a chiyuv of reish hagez that's triggered. But the Chachamim even if you need 5 animals, but even if it's only a mashu, it's also a chiyuv. Now, is kol shehu dafka? Rabbi Yosef wanted to say kol shehu dafka, but here you see kol shehu is lav dafka, because Varminon we said the chama kol shein. How much is a kol shein that's mechayiv somebody's reish hagez? Amrav mana upras. If between all 5 of these animals there's a mana upras, lavachu mechumoshos, but 1/5 of a mana upras has to be produced by each of the 5 animals. You can't have one animal produce only a strand and the other ones together add up to mana upras. There has to be a critical mass by each animal produced. So you see clearly that kol shehu is lav dafka. Kol shehu means even more than the kol shehu. So how could you, Rabbi Yosef, be medayik from our Mishnah that kol shehu is dafka? You see in other brises that kol shehu is lav dafka. Again, Hasam bidin who the listening kol shehu. It really shouldn't use the word kol shehu because that's not what it means. We're talking about a lot more than a kol shehu. It's a total of a mana upras. But the Adi Dekam Tanakama Shiur Rabbah, since the Tanakama said that you need a huge amount of wool in order to trigger a chiyuv reish hagez, in comparison, he just wants to say you need a little bit. Amr Iunami Shirazuta, and therefore Karila Kolshu. He's just calling it a Kolshu to create that effect, to create that contrast. But Avada, it doesn't mean a Kolshu. So, but normally when the Mishnah says Kolshu, and it doesn't have any reason to use the word Kolshu, and it uses it like in our Mishnah, where we say that if a Shchibmar leaves over a Kolshu, then his Matal is Kaim, even if he remains alive, even if he recovers, that means literally a Kolshu, not like what Rabbi Yirmiyah said, that it means Kedei Parnasas. Actually, Rabbi Yehuda Marav said Kedei Parnasas. Zokamar, Pshita, Omar, Metaltli Leplanya. If he says that my metaltalin should go to so and so, that was a nusach he wrote either in a shtar matana or it was a shchibmra who said it. I believe. See what Rashbam says. Amar shchibmra metaltalin leplanya v'hu adin lebori al yedei kini. Yeah. So either way, someone used the word my metaltalin should go to plani. So the halacha is. Kol mani tashmisha kani. Everything that he has, any kid that he has, is going to be kaina. It's part of his metaltlin. Levar mechiti v'sayv, but it doesn't include his food items. So there are things that are not included even when he's saying my metaltlin should go to plane. But what if he said kol metaltlin leplani, all of my metaltlin? So he's even being more inclusive than just saying metaltlin leplani. Then afilu chiti v'sayri, he's even including the wheat and the barley that he has, the food items. And even the top millstone, we know a millstone was the bottom one, which was the base, which was heavier, which didn't move around much, although it wasn't bolted to the ground. And then there's the upper stone that was also pretty heavy, but that was considered more mobile. So that would also be included if he said kol matal. Kana levar meirachaim hatachton. But the bottom millstone is more stationary, and therefore it wouldn't be included, even if he had kol matal. If he said kol dimetaltal, anything I have that could be moved, then afilu rechaim hatachton. Then he even means to include something that you rarely move, but is moved. Ibailu. It's like a built-in furniture. Ibailu. Abda kemekarka oich metaltal ladam. If someone said, I'm giving someone metaltal, which is the subject matter that we just discussed, does it include avadim? Are the avadim included in this gift? Let's see if we could bring a raya from the price. It's a Mishnah, actually. What if somebody sells an entire city? What's included when you buy an entire city? Machar Batim, he sold all the houses in the city. The ditches and pits that are used to store water. If there's any bathhouses in the city, those are included. Ubeis Habadin, and places where they press olives for oil. Ubeis Hashlachin. Based Hashlachin, I believe, are types of fields. So everything is included. Right, Beis Hashlachin is a type of field, right? What does he say in the article? Beis Habad is a press, and Beis Hashlachin is a field that what? Okay. So Beis Hashlachin is a field that you have to irrigate. Avaloy as a metalton. Avaloy as a metalton. But it does not include metalton. If there's metalton in the city, that's not included in the sale. But if in the sale you specify it and all its contents, then afilu hayiba behema oy avodim harei kulamu. So Zok Gemara as follows: if you're going to say that avodim are like metalton, mishumachi loy mizdavin bereisha. That's why it wasn't included if you said a moicher seir. A moicher seir includes bottom sheik nemaris mechatzois with a bottom b'shlochin, but not a bottom, right? So if you say avodim are kmetaltlin, it makes sense why. If you said, I'm selling you the house, the city, the ev is not included. But eliyamit kebekarka domi, if an ev has status of karka, amai lo bizdavin, why wouldn't it have been included even if Tami sold the city? So practically more elamai. So what are you going to say? Kimetaltla dami, and that was like metaltlin. Maya filu. It says if you said even it includes even behemoths in the vadim. Well, why not? What's the difference between the behemoth and the eved and the chair? It's mobile. So what's the lashon afilu? It's mashma that it's not the eved's not exactly the status of a metaltlin. What are you going to be forced to say? You know why it says afilu? The shiny metaltla denied. The reason why we say afilu avodim is because avodim are not like a chair. A chair stays put. A chair is where it is. But an ever is independently mobile. So that's why there'd be a svara to say that he wouldn't even be included in the taltlin. So if you're going to say that, then afilu tema kemakarkedami. Then you no longer have a raya that an ever is kemataltlin. You could say ever is kemakarkedami. So why isn't he included? If someone just says, I'm selling you the city, because again, shani mekarka denied, mekarka denied. You'll say when a person sells the city, he only has in mind to give you karka that's not mobile, but mobile karka, as an evidence, he has a status of karka for certain halachas with the raisa, but he's mobile. Maybe that's what wouldn't be included. So therefore, you don't have a raya from here if an evidence has a status of karka or metal. Now, it's not really asking. The Gemara Shaila is not what halachas in the Torah. We know in the Torah that Abba Kinyanim, like Abba many things, and Eved has a din of karka. Really, we're discussing is what a person means when he says, "I'm giving you metatlin." Does he mean to include avodim not? So it's really a shaila in how das b'nei how people refer to an Eved. Amalei Ravina Ravashi. Tashma. Maybe we could bring a right. Hachoytzav kol nechatzav la'avda. Someone wrote over all of his nechasim to his Eved. That's what the Tzionim says. He turns to adjust the order. The halach is Yotza ben Chayim. The Eved goes free. We just had this brisa at the bottom of Kuf Mem Testament base. Shir Karka Koshu. What if he said, I'm giving all my nechasim to an Eved, but I'm keeping for myself a small piece of karka. And you remember, we just said that over there, karka means even metalton, right? So the halach is lo yotzim and chayrin, because maybe the shear, maybe the little metalton or the little karka that you're reserving for yourself, maybe you mean to include that Eved in that little piece, meaning you're not giving the Eved anything. Ab Shimon Aimer, lo oilamu ben chayrin, at sheyoyim kol nechosai nesunin leploni avdi chutz me'echet meribu shaveh. Someone says, I'm retaining for myself a defined piece of property. We're not going to say that he means the Eved. But if he's purposely vague and he said, I'm giving you everything, Mr. Eved, except 1/10,000 to my nechosim. That's being purposely vague to indicate that I really mean not to give yourself to yourself. I don't want to actually come out and say it explicitly. I'm saying it in a more subtle fashion. There you'll say that the Eved does not coin himself, and therefore is not coin to anything. Also, metaltlin shear eitzel Eved, well, also metaltlin shear eitzel ksuba. Metaltlin is a shear lagav the Eved, meaning if someone says I'm retaining metaltlin for myself, I might be referring to the Eved. But if a husband retains some karka for himself, some metaltlin for himself, it wouldn't matter. The lady would still give her ksubah. The lady only doesn't give her ksubah if the husband's retaining karka for himself. My timer. Why is it that if you say I'm giving you everything except for some metaltlin, why do we say that I might be withholding the Eved with that expression? Because avda metaltlahu umetaltla havashir. Metaltlin, when I'm saying metaltlin, when I'm saying that I'm retaining some metaltlin, then the Eved, which I consider metaltlin, is going to be a shear. Ksubas isha mekakahu. By ksubas isha, the only chiyuv is the only shibud is on his kaka. Metaltlin kat milamekaka lo have a shear. But metaltlin, if all the husband keeps for himself is metaltlin and not kaka, that wouldn't be a shear. The Akol Padim, you see here clearly that we consider an Eved metaltlin, because when someone says that I'm giving you all my nechasim except for some metaltlin, we say it could mean the Eved. So the Eved could be metaltlin. So turning on to Amud Beis, Amar Lei. So let's just see who's talking. It's very important the couple who's talking over here. This whole shaila was initiated by Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi was the one who was handling the shaila, because Rav Avi was the one who brought Rav Ashi the raya. Again, Amalei Rav Ashi. So Rav Ashi is involved over here, but this direct shaila was Rava and Rav Nachman. Rava told Rav Nachman that Avdis Kmetaltlin, and that's why when you say I'm holding back some metaltlin, I might be included the evidence as well. So Zok to Gemara, maybe that's not Pshat in Rav Nachman. Maybe when Rav Nachman said that even if someone said I'm giving you my everything except for some metaltlin, maybe the Eved doesn't go free, but not because of the reasoning that you just thought, and that is that the Eved is the metaltlin that is holding back. Maybe that's not the reason. Maybe the reason for Rav Nachman is Amrnei Anan Lav Mishum. Anan Mishum, the Lav Krois Gita Mastinoli. It has nothing to do with the fact that the Eved is the metaltlin that the other is referring to when he says I'm retaining some part of my estates. It's just because that passels to get shikhr. And the Rishbam has two interesting pshatim over here. One is we learn Eved, we learn the get shikhr of Eved from the get shikhr of an Isha, which is la me'isha. And you need creases. We all know that when you give a get, there can be no strings to that. The marriage has to be severed forever. And you cannot even say it's nothing. You don't drink wine your whole life. I can't say that because she's automatically tethered to him for the rest of her life, not to drink wine, or else the get won't be chal. That's not a get creases. So therefore, similarly, when you free an Eved, there has to be no tether. There can't be any reservation in the get. So Dr. Rishbam, since in the star with which I'm freeing the Eved, I'm giving him all my nechasim, I'm also giving myself something with that same star. Therefore, lehikna lo yashtar legamri. Segam schus ha'odin kosev. This is a massive chiddush. It's a chiddush that it's not enough of a get krisos. First of all, you need to get krisos even when you free an evet, because we learned it out of get A, and B is it's not enough of a krisos if in the same star with which he's giving the evet to himself, he's also giving something to himself. That would be a chesron to get krisos. So it's a puzzle to get krisos. That's the problem. That's the talton is not referring to the evet. He's referring to his car. But since in this get shikhr, he's withholding something for himself, it's a puzzle to get shikhr. The finish. The other shot that the Rashbam says, the gam yesh lefarish kach. Loyim abda k'mekarkadam. The gabaget a maicha shvinon afilu metaltlin shir televet. Why davka by a get shikhr do you consider an evid metaltlin? Because we know we don't consider an evid metaltlin. We consider him kakarka. Why here is he considered like metaltlin? And therefore, when someone says chutz mi metaltlin, maybe he's not freeing his evet. Hanitayma mishum decreases gomer be'ina, because you need decreases gomer. The chivon shezeh shayir metaltlin, since he left over some metaltlin, man leim alon the lahayu b'daite l'shayir evet b'chlal metaltlin. Maybe he didn't mean to include evet. Achrish lepirish ma metaltlin sheshayir. If you hold abdik mekarkadami, why would you say that over here, when he's withholding metaltlin, he means to withhold evet? The teretz is because it has to be a krisis. It has to be crystal clear that you're severing from this evet. And since there could still be some confusion, that's not enough clarity. So whatever it is, it's a local sul in the get shikhr that was given to the evet himself, but not at all an indication of if abda is k'makar kedami or k'metaltlin. Now, this is Reb Nachman Alan. Omerli Anan. Reb Nachman is talking. So Reb Ashi also had a pshat on Reb Nachman. Reb Ashi had a pshat on Reb Nachman that it is because abda k'metaltlin. So that's what Tosha speaks out over here. Shekei noshav Reb Nachman l'Rava. Reb Nachman answered Rava that maybe what I'm saying is for a different reason. Aval Reb Ashi lo yahiyo I'm misvor dinafshe. Don't think Reb Ashi made up that svara. That's the reason why the evet doesn't go free when someone reserves some metaltlin for himself is because abdo k'metaltlin dami. Don't think Rabbi Ashi made it up, because it seems like Rabbi Ashi's explaining the sheet of Rabbi Nachman in a different way than Rabbi Nachman himself is explaining his own pshat. But no, Rabbi Ashi lo yoyim mishvadin afshay. V'achanami mashma per kama de gittin the par chasam de Rabbi Nachman ad Rabbi Nachman. The Gemara has a steer in Rabbi Nachman. V'ayitosh Rabbi Nachman himself in certain cases did say that abdos k'metaltlin dami. Umashani mishum delav kresh gita. But alma mashma Rabbi Nachman gufehu de kamachi. So Rabbi Nachman himself seems to offer two pshatim in his own psak, and therefore he might be referring to either one. In other words, he's probably saying you don't have a right either way. Say that again? Yeah, he is. But he's talking about Rav Nachman's halacha. That's what Tosha is trying to point out. How could Rav Ashi argue with Rav Nachman pshat in his own halacha? Right? Teretz Rav Nachman also himself said that way something. Omar Rava, Omar Rav Nachman. So if I'm not mistaken, we did not come to a maskana if an evet is considered metaltlin or not. The Gemara tried several rayas. The Gemara didn't come out with a clear ray. Omar Rava, Omar Rav Nachman. Chamisha, there's 5 types of nois matana that their halacha won't work, whatever the respective halacha is, ad sheyichtavu kol nechseh, unless all of the nechasim are included. For instance, Veiloin, Shchivmara is one of them. We said it's not a matna Shchivmara unless he wrote over all the nechasim. If he didn't wrote over all the nechasim, then if he survives, he gets if he survives, he doesn't get it back. It's only a matna Shchivmara that he gets it back if he wrote over all his nechasim. So that's where it would be relevant to a Shchivmara. By Abdoi, it would be relevant for an Evet as well, which we also just learned. If you give an Evet to himself, you can't hold back anything for yourself. You have to give everything, otherwise the Evet won't be kind himself. Ishto Yubanov and Mavrachas. So what are all these cases? So the Gemara goes through them one by one. Shchivmara ditnan. Shchivmara shekos of kol nechos of lacherim v'shayir karka kol shehu. Then matanasa kayemes. Why? Because since he kept them for himself, he was giving this gift, even though he was going to live, he still wanted to give it away. But hooray, he kept something for himself so he could survive. Lo yishayir karka kol shehu. He left nothing for himself. So then we have the Anan Tadi, we have the Umda that says he only gave it away because he didn't think that he would need it anymore. Ein matanos kayavas. Avdei, what's halacha of avdei? The Tanan we learned, Hakosh of kol nechos of la'avdei, yotza ben chayrin. Shayar kaka kol shehu lo yotza ben chayrin. So unless he gave David everything without any reservation, the Eved doesn't go free. That's the brisa we just learned. We get a built-in chazara minei ubei. Ishtoi, what's the case of Ishtoi? Damar bidom Shmuel. We had this as well earlier in the Masechta. Hakosh earlier in the pair. Hakosh of I'm sorry, not early in this pair. Earlier in the pre-Yishnoichim. Hakosh of kol nechasav leishtoi. If someone writes over all of his nechasim to his wife, we say this is one of those hilchas of b'loy timers that we said. Loy also ela petrupa. He doesn't really mean to give her everything. He's not going to take away the rightful Yerusha from his children. So all he's doing when he gives everything to his wife, he means to merely make her the executor of the estate so that the children should respect her because they know that she's in control of the funds. So that again, that only works if he gave her everything. If he didn't give her everything, then in fact it is a matana. Bana, what's the case of bana? That now we learned hakosh of kol nechas of lebana, the chas of lishtoi kaka koshu. What if somebody was distributing his nechasim to his children, and he also gave his wife a piece of property? We said of the ksuba, so she loses the ksuba because we say that she was moichel ksuba when she accepted that piece of land in parallel with her children. But if he left over something for himself that he didn't distribute at the time, we say she doesn't lose the ksuba because she still has in mind to collect her ksuba from the karka that was remaining still in her husband's possession. And mavrachas is basically a prina. A very wealthy woman who wants to remarry. She wants her wealth to go to her children from her previous marriage. The problem is, if she marries a man, she's going to be yashined by him. So if she dies, he'll get everything, and her children will get nothing. I know a lot of family fights that occurred because of this. A woman dies, and her children from the first marriage want to sell the house, and her husband doesn't want to move out of the house. There's a lot of stories that I'm familiar about this. There's a big fight in LA going on. Anyway, Damar Mavrecha. So what does she do? So how did she get out of it? She before she gets married, she writes a star that she's gifting everything that she owns to Reuven. Right? Now, let's say she gets married and then she dies. So the husband's going to want to collect her nechasim. The Reuven will say, no, they're mine. Right? And if her husband dies before her, or he divorces her, so then the matana is bottled. So if you think about it, it was never really a matana at all. It was a scam. But the scam works, and the Rabbanan look at it like it's not quite in her, it's not quite in her rishos, but it's not quite out of her rishos either. It works to prevent her second husband from getting a chelik there. Yomamar, Mavreches, in order for us to say that she didn't really mean it when she gifted everything to Reuven, and really she's just doing it so that her husband can't get a hold of it, she had to have gifted everything that she owns, not part of what she owns. For the same reason, there was only a little bit, we'll say she really meant it, and then the person who got it, the person who she gifted to it will be able to keep it. And in all of these 5 that we listed, metaltlin is a shear, meaning in this last case, if she gave away everything to this third party, but she didn't give away certain metaltlin, then the guy gets to keep it. But like Ksuba, we said, meaning in the case where someone split up his nechasim and he gave his wife a chelik of the land, unless he kept over a piece of karka for himself, we'll say that she was moichaluk Ksuba. The makarke tekina rabbanon, and metaltlin tekina rabbanon. The rabbanon were not masakin Ksuba to collect from metaltlin. You only collect it from karka because we know that she relies on it, can't go anywhere. But Ameimer wanted to say a chiddush. Metaltle the ksivi b'ksuba ve'isnu be'naya havishir. What would be if in her ksuba it was written that I'm leaving you the car, this is going to be your car towards your ksuba, and the husband distributed all his assets, all his karkosh, and she got to, but the husband left over the car. So the halacha is there's a kameimer. That's different. That's not a regular metalton. That's metalton that are en and they're written in the ksuba. If he left over the car, she could say, I'm not moichel my ksuba, even though I took a piece of land, because that car, I was relying on the car to collect.
Is this the keren from this extra?
We're talking about the Karen, the Mona Messiah. So I want to look at the Rashbam on this Mavrachas, because Mavrachas is such an interesting scenario, because it's not a matana, it's like almost a scam. So let's have a look at it. Mavrachas the Amar Kloimar Isha Almona, she has a lot of wealth. But she wants to marry. But she doesn't want her second husband to have a schus with it. And the imtis almain oitis kairish. If her marriage will disintegrate, she wants it back. So she gives it away, then she can't get it back, right? So she needs to give it away, but in a way that she'll get it back once, if and when her marriage ends. If she won't completely remove these nechasim from her possession before she does nesuin to the second husband, Yizka ben Baal, he'll get it. So we said in Ksubas, how does she do it? I'm giving all of my assets to Reuven. Since she gave him everything and she kept nothing for herself, she didn't really want to give it to Reuven. She's only doing it as a ploy to prevent her husband from getting it. And therefore, when she wants it back, Reuben will have to give it back to her. But when she gifted to Reuben, she did retain some of her property for herself. Then kana hamakabel matana, then Reuben gets to keep it. And even if her marriage disintegrates and she wants to go get her money back, he says, "Sorry, you gave it to me." He never has to return it back. Reuben gets to keep them because that was a legitimate present. You weren't only giving it to me for that purpose. Some of the stuff you kept for yourself. It doesn't say this halacha anywhere in the Gemara. We learned it just because of other halachas that are written in the Gemara. We learned this from. And tomorrow we're going to get more into it. So I'm not going to go through it all now, but I just want to say the following. If she wrote over all nechasim to Reuven, the Reuven doesn't get to keep it. Because if the marriage ends, she can go back to Reuven and collect from it. But at least it also does that her husband won't be able to get it. So how does it work? It's like magic. According to Reb Shimon, when she gives it to somebody, even though it's a fake gift, they make it like it's nechasim that aren't known to the Baal. So I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it's some magic that it's a magic that works out to prenup. That's right. If there's a star, it's different, and that's what the rest of the Rishbam is discussing, which will be discussed tomorrow. If she didn't write them all over, so if she didn't give over all the nechasim and she wants to get it back, there she has to write she has to put a stipulation. If you put a stipulation in, then she can get it back, even if she only gave some of her nechasim. But if she put them all, she doesn't have to do anything, and we still say that she gets it back. So how that works exactly, I'm not sure. Like the Rashbam says, they made it as if he doesn't have access to it, but Lamaisa, the recipient of the gift, doesn't get to keep it either. Omar, he said,
Reuven is not her son,
I'm
right?
sorry?
This Reuven that she's giving it.
No, this Reuven is a total stranger. Yeah, that's right. I mean, it could be her son. Omar, he said, Nechasei leplanya avda. I'm sorry, Nechasei leplanya. What if someone says, I'm giving all my nechasim to Reuven? Is he including Evadim in that nechasim? Zok to Gemara, avda ikri dichsi. An Eved is referred to as one of my nechasim. So therefore, the Eved will be included in this gift. It's not a cause of kol nechasav la'avdoi Yosy ben Chayrin. Why is Yosy ben Chayrin? Because one of the nechasim that I'm giving to the Eved is the Eved himself. So you see, a person refers to an Eved as his nechasim. Ara ikri nichsi. Land is also considered my nechasim. When I say I'm giving you my nechasim, it means I'm giving you my land as well. So you see, karka is referred to nechasim sheish l'machrayis. This type of nechasim. Glima, a beget, or some other metalton is also a krinichsi for the same brisa. So you see that other metalton are considered nechasim as well. Zuzi, money, cash, ikri nixi. That's also considered nechasim. Sheyesh le'machra zuzik nichtetnan v'she'ein le'machrayis niknen im nechasim sheyesh le'machrayis v'kesef v'shtaru v'chazaka. And how do we know that included in the nechasim she'ein le'machrayis that you could be kind of clean agav? How do we know that includes cash? Maybe he's only referring to begadim and some other material of value, but not currency. We know it from a story. He had 13, no, Tracer is 12. He had 12,000 zuz by Bechuzoi. They were watching the money for him. And he wanted to get it back. So the problem is, Bechuzoi wouldn't give it to any shliach and send it back to him, because they're going to say if it gets lost along the way, he's going to say, I never made him as a shliach, and then we're going to owe him the money. We're only willing to give the money directly into the hands of Rav Papa. And Rav Papa, we had this many times, and Rav Papa wasn't prepared to go there. So you know what Rav Papa did? Shmuel Baruch was headed anyway to where the Bechuzai lived. So he was maked them the money to Rav Shmuel Baruch, and Rashbam says, and there's a big touch there about power of attorney. He wasn't, there's a shiloh, did he literally give it to Rav Shmuel Baruch and Rav Shmuel Baruch's money? Or did he just give him a power of attorney to be able to retrieve it in such a way that Bechuzoi will feel confident that when they give it to Shmuel Baruch, they've severed all of their liability. And he gave it to him how? Agav asifet the basic, by being makna to Shmuel Baruch, the threshold of his house, which is the nechasim sheyesh lo machrayis, and through that he was makna to Shmuel, the nechasim she'ein lo machrayis, which was a cash. So you see, cash is also nechasim. And Kiyasa, when Shmuel Baruch came back from Bechuzoi with the money, Rav Papa was so excited that he was going to get his money back. Novik la'pei atavak. He went to greet Shmuel Baruch on his way. He didn't wait till he came. He came out to greet him. He went to Tavak. And the Rashbam has a discussion. Did he go at Tavak halfway? He went halfway back to make sure Shmuel won't keep it because maybe he gave it to him as a gift. Or Rashbam, no. Maybe he just went because he was happy to see him, but he wasn't choshesh that Shmuel was going to keep it because he never gave it to him. He just gave him a power of attorney. Okay. If someone's giving you my nechasim, what if I have shtaris that people owe me money? Is that included? Zok to Gemara, also included. Delma Rabbi by Yitzchak, Shnei shtaris, hein. There's two halachas that were said legabe shtaris. One of them is Omar. What if someone says Chu b'sada zelaplay? Someone tells two shluchim, I want you to be kind of this field on behalf of Reuben, and the chos v'loyas a shtar, and they should write him a shtar. So the halach is choyzer b'shtar vein choyzer b'sad. Once they're kind for this third party, it's irrevocable. But they didn't write the shtar yet, so until they write the shtar, I can say, I don't want you to write a shtar. I'm giving him a gift, but I don't want him to have such good proof of the gift. What if he said, Amanasha tichtu v'loyas the shtar? Only be kind for him, Amanasha to write him a shtar. So there, even if they made a kinyan on it already, but they didn't write the shtar yet, the deal is still irrevocable because a t'nai for the matana to be mekuyim is only if the shtar is written. So therefore, choyzer ben b'shtar ben b'sada. If I say I change my mind, I don't want you to make a shtar anymore, that'll automatically reverse the gift. There's another halacha that was said regarding the stars, and here's where you're going to see that a star is considered nechas. Trey hanid amrin idich. It says mkada moicher because of a star. What if I need money, so I want to sell a property, but I didn't make a deal yet. But I think Rabbi Yitzchak is going to buy my property, so I write a star on this and this day. I sold my property to Rabbi Yitzchak. Normally, you don't write a star to the detriment of somebody unless it's actually happening. But I myself can do it. If I want to do it, I can do it. Why am I doing it? So that if I meet you on the street and you're willing to buy it, we can make a quick sale. We don't have to write up all the documents at that point. So the law is you could do that. Like we learned, you can do such a thing. Going onto that kuf nun aleph amud aleph. Because the moicher can authorize a shtar to be written to his detriment. The moment Rabbi Yitzchak made a kinyan on the karka, nikne shtar kol makom shehu. He'll automatically be koina the shtar wherever the shtar is. How is he koina the shtar? Dr. Brisa, v'zui sheshaninu nechosim she'ein lo machrayis nikten im nechosim she'esh lo machrayis b'chesef u'b'shtar u'b'chesef. So you see clearly that we're saying that you're koina a shtar as well with kinyan agav. That means a shtar must be nechosim. Therefore, if someone says I'm giving my nechasim, it also includes a star. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll be back with Hashem tomorrow. It's not a problem. Why would there be a problem if it's a star muktam over here? There shouldn't be a problem if there's a star muktam.
Because if he's going to sell the other field,
Right.
and then somebody's going to be tired from the lekichas,
So if he owed money from
Yeah.
before,
and he's going to be tired from the lekichas, so he has to go to the last one first.
I guess we're not choshev for that. I guess it's a good order. It's a good order, but I guess you're not choshev for that. Because the response is the einei choiv elul moicher. So you're asking me, sometimes it could be a choiv to someone who bought it. I guess the only guy, the reason why he's writing the stars because he wants to sell this field. He's probably not going to sell it. He's probably not chashash, so he'll be selling another field in the meantime. Here,
If
there's a-
it's avaleh, negotiate